AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her new boyfriend to our family vacation after what happened last year. So, I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, and we've always had a pretty close relationship. Our family is not huge, just our parents, Emily, and me, but we're very tight-knit. Every year, our family takes a week-long vacation together, usually somewhere by the beach or in the mountains. Last year, Emily started dating someone new, Josh, 30M. I didn't know much about him at the time, but Emily was head over heels, and honestly, I wanted her to be happy. We went on our family vacation in August, and Emily insisted that Josh join us. I was hesitant, but my parents were excited to meet him and insisted we include him. I warned Emily privately that we didn't really know him, and she brushed it off, saying he was a great guy. At first, everything seemed fine, but quickly became apparent that Josh had some major boundary issues. He was constantly glued to Emily, ignoring any family interaction, and would interrupt conversations to make jokes at inappropriate times. The real tipping point came on the third day. We had planned a family hike in the mountains. Emily and Josh were walking a bit ahead of us, which I didn't mind at first, but then Josh decided to race to a viewpoint, ignoring Emily's protest that she wasn't feeling well. She fell and twisted her ankle. I immediately ran to help her, and thankfully it wasn't a severe injury, but it ruined the rest of the day. What upset everyone the most, though, was that Josh seemed completely oblivious, laughing nervously and saying things like, "It's just a sprain, she'll be fine," while Emily was in pain. Over the course of the week, Josh did several other things that made everyone uncomfortable. He criticized my mom's cooking loudly in front of everyone, mocked my dad for being slow during a kayaking trip, and even made a joke about my younger cousin's appearance that had us all silenced. By the end of the week, the whole family was tense, and my parents quietly admitted they were disappointed in how he behaved. Emily, however, defended him fiercely, saying we were overreacting and that he was just joking around. After we returned home, Emily insisted that Josh was different in normal settings and that we should give him another chance. I tried to be polite, but honestly, I felt like he showed a side that would never fit with our family dynamic. I didn't want to confront her about it directly because I didn't want to start a fight, but I felt uneasy about future family events. Fast forward to this year, our family planned another vacation. Emily called me a month ago, saying that she and Josh wanted to join us again. I immediately felt anxious and said I wasn't sure if it was a good idea. Emily accused me of being judgmental and said I was punishing her for last year. I tried to explain calmly that Josh had crossed multiple boundaries, put Emily in danger, and made the whole family uncomfortable. She yelled at me, saying that I didn't trust her judgment and that I was controlling her life. I spoke with our parents privately, and they were torn. They love Emily, but they also remember Josh's behavior vividly. My dad said it would be awkward if Josh came along, but my mom thinks excluding him might cause a big family fight. After a lot of discussion, I decided to tell Emily that she could not bring Josh on this vacation. I tried to phrase it as concern for family harmony rather than punishment, but she exploded. She accused me of being selfish, controlling, and told me that I was trying to ruin her relationship. She said our family vacation used to be about everyone feeling welcome, and now I was dictating who she could and couldn't bring. Since then, she's been giving me the cold shoulder, only communicating through short texts about minor things. My parents are upset about the tension, but they understand why I made the decision. I feel like I'm in a tough spot. I don't want to hurt Emily, but I also don't want to relive last year's disaster or deal with someone who behaves in ways that make the whole family uncomfortable. I've tried to offer compromises, like meeting him separately before the vacation or staying somewhere nearby, but she refuses to consider any alternative. I know I might come across as controlling, but my main concern is safety and family enjoyment. I also feel like Emily is old enough to understand that past behavior has consequences, and Josh's actions last year weren't minor. Am I really in the wrong for setting this boundary? Or should I let her bring him and risk another unpleasant experience for everyone? This whole situation has created a lot of tension, and I'm worried it might permanently damage our relationship. I feel guilty because I love my sister, but I also feel strongly that some boundaries are necessary. even if they cause short-term conflict. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her boyfriend on our family vacation after his behavior last year. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to babysit my niece after my sister repeatedly insulted me for my career choices. I, 28F, have always had a strained relationship with my sister, Emily, 32F. Growing up, we were close, but as we got older, our differences became more apparent. I went into a career in software development, which I love, while Emily pursued teaching. While I respect her choices, she has always been very vocal about mine, often criticizing me for being too ambitious or too focused on money. Last year, Emily had her second child, and things started to get more complicated. I've always been willing to help my family when needed, but my sister's attitude has made me hesitant. She often makes passive-aggressive comments about my lifestyle, my relationship status, and my work hours, which I usually brush off, but it builds up over time. Recently, Emily asked me to babysit her 2 children, ages 5 and 2, for a weekend because she and her husband were going on a short trip. I told her that I could help, but I had to take my work into account since I occasionally have projects that require me to stay home. She insisted that I could just manage a few hours and implied that I was being selfish for prioritizing work. I tried to explain that even though I work from home, my projects often require deep focus, and interruptions make it difficult to be productive. She dismissed this and said, "You always think about yourself. Some of us actually have responsibilities outside of our little bubble." I felt hurt by her words, but tried to remain calm. I offered an alternative. I could babysit for a few hours during the day, but I couldn't commit to the whole weekend. Emily refused to compromise and kept insisting that since I don't have children, I should have no problem watching hers. She even suggested that I owe it to the family because I had more financial stability than she did. At this point, I decided to say no to babysitting entirely. I told her that I couldn't commit to looking after 2 young kids for an entire weekend and that it wouldn't be fair to anyone if I couldn't give them proper attention. Her response was explosive. She accused me of being a bad sister and claimed I was unsupportive and selfish. She then went on to criticize my life choices, saying that I'm all work and no compassion, and that my career makes me too self-absorbed to care about family. Our parents got involved, and while they tried to stay neutral, they implied that I should have made more effort to help my sister since she had 2 children and a demanding job. I stood my ground because I genuinely felt that I would not be able to provide proper care for her kids while balancing my work. However, I also realized that I might have handled things differently to avoid the conflict. I could have tried to negotiate a compromise more firmly or offered other forms of support instead of outright refusing. But at the same time, I feel that my sister was unreasonable in expecting me to drop everything for her children, especially given the way she often belittles my choices. Since this incident, Emily has been cold toward me, and family gatherings have become tense. Some relatives have implied that I should learn to put family first, while others have privately told me they understand my perspective. I'm torn because I value my relationship with my niece and nephew, but I also don't want to feel forced into situations where I'm being criticized for my lifestyle or career. I have thought about trying to mend things by offering help in ways that don't conflict with my work, such as coming over for a few hours in the evenings, arranging a play date at a nearby park, or even helping her find a babysitter she can trust. But I also worry that any offer I make will be dismissed, or that she will continue to use it as an opportunity to criticize me. I also considered the possibility that I might be overreacting, that perhaps I should put family obligations above personal convenience, or that my refusal could genuinely be perceived as selfish. On the other hand, I feel that being forced to babysit under these conditions would be emotionally taxing and unfair to me, especially given the history of criticism from my sister. I want to be there for my family without feeling like I'm compromising my own mental health or being subjected to constant judgment. I know there's a delicate balance between supporting loved ones and setting boundaries, but I'm struggling to find it. So, AITA for refusing to babysit my niece and nephew after my sister insulted me for my career and lifestyle choices, or am I justified in protecting my time and mental well-being? AITA for refusing to lie to my sister about her husband's job situation, which caused a huge family fight. I, 35F, have a sister, Hannah, 32F, who has always been a bit trusting to a fault. She recently married her husband, Greg, 34M, who I'll admit has always seemed a little careless with finances and career decisions. I've known Greg since he and Hannah started dating, and while I try to maintain a polite relationship, I've noticed a pattern where he sometimes hides or exaggerates things to avoid conflict or responsibility. A few weeks ago, Greg came to me privately, asking me not to tell Hannah something about his employment. He had been recently laid off from his job at a marketing firm, but had not told her. Instead, he was telling her that he was still working and that his boss had given him extra responsibilities that required him to work late hours. He asked me to cover for him and maintain the story if Hannah asked, claiming it would prevent unnecessary stress. I immediately felt uncomfortable. I told him I could not lie to Hannah, especially about something that impacts both of their lives financially and emotionally. He became insistent, arguing that it was a temporary measure and that no one needed to know the truth yet. I reminded him that secrets like this tend to grow and create bigger issues if they are discovered, and that Hannah deserved to know the truth so she could plan accordingly. Greg said I was being dramatic and selfish for not helping him avoid trouble. The problem escalated when Hannah started asking me questions about Greg's work schedule. I was honest, telling her that he had recently mentioned some changes and that she should speak to him directly. Greg got angry when he found out that I had not lied, accusing me of betraying him and claiming that I had blown everything up. I explained to him that I was protecting Hannah's right to know and that lying would have been worse in the long run. A week later, Hannah confronted Greg, having noticed inconsistencies in his story. He eventually admitted that he had been laid off for several weeks, but had been too embarrassed to tell her. Hannah was shocked and hurt, naturally, and the conversation quickly escalated into a heated argument. I was present for part of it because she had asked me for support after discovering the truth. Greg immediately turned on me, claiming that I had deliberately caused this scene by not lying for him. He said I was manipulative and had sided with her instead of helping him out. The family became involved quickly. Our parents took Hannah's side, saying I did the right thing by being honest, but Greg's parents were furious with me, arguing that I should have protected their son and not exposed his secret in such a way. Siblings, cousins, and other relatives started giving conflicting opinions, and it became clear that the dispute was dividing the family into factions. Greg accused me of being controlling and judgmental, implying that I had been trying to dictate the relationship between him and Hannah. In the aftermath, Hannah thanked me privately, saying she appreciated knowing the truth and being able to address the situation responsibly. She also said she was frustrated that Greg had tried to manipulate the situation and that she would be taking steps to ensure transparency going forward. However, the tension with Greg remains. He refuses to speak to me directly, sends passive-aggressive texts through mutual friends, and has even posted cryptic messages on social media implying that I interfered in their marriage. Some family members have criticized me for creating unnecessary drama and not letting them handle it privately, while others say I was morally obligated to be honest. I feel that my responsibility was to protect Hannah from deception, even if it caused immediate conflict. I also feel that lying would have undermined her trust in both me and Greg in the long run. I've reflected a lot on whether I could have handled the situation differently. I considered being less direct or trying to mediate between Hannah and Greg before the truth came out, but I realized that ultimately, hiding it would have been harmful. I also tried to communicate calmly with Greg and even offered to help him frame the conversation in a way that was less shocking, but he rejected all attempts at compromise and continued to pressure me to lie. The family dynamics are tense now. Hannah is understandably upset, but grateful. Greg is resentful and refuses to engage with me. And some extended family members are treating me as if I caused unnecessary conflict. I want to maintain relationships on all sides, but I feel that I made the only ethical choice. So, AITA for refusing to lie to my sister about her husband being laid off, even though it caused a huge family fight and made her husband resent me. AITA for confronting my brother about his toxic behavior, even though it caused a huge family divide. I'm 28, and my younger brother, Jake, is 24. We've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, he was the golden child in my parents' eyes. I was quiet, studious, and didn't rock the boat, while he was loud, charismatic, and seemed to get away with anything. As kids, I mostly kept to myself because he thrived on attention, but as adults, things started to get more serious. Our parents are divorced, and we all live in the same city, so family gatherings are unavoidable. The problem really escalated about 2 years ago. Jake had a falling out with our mom after he refused to help her financially when she lost her job. He always claimed he was saving for important things and didn't need to support anyone, even though he'd been working a high-paying tech job for several years. I tried to stay out of it at first, thinking it wasn't my place, but it was obvious that our mom was struggling and hurt by his lack of support. Every family gathering turned into a subtle or not-so-subtle showdown, with Jake making snide remarks about her financial mismanagement or lazily shifting blame onto everyone else. A few months later, I started noticing his behavior toward me. It was subtle at first, little passive-aggressive comments about my job, my relationship, and even my apartment. Nothing big, just irritating digs meant to get under my skin. I ignored them for a while, telling myself it was normal sibling teasing, but it escalated fast. He began publicly criticizing me at family dinners, telling our relatives that I was too sensitive, lazy, or overdramatic. When I tried to defend myself, he would turn it around and act like I was the unreasonable one. I began to feel anxious every time I knew we'd see each other. I finally had a breaking point when he started spreading rumors about me to mutual friends and some extended family. He claimed I had gotten a big promotion at work because of nepotism, insinuating that I was lying about my accomplishments. People I trusted started asking me awkward questions, and I felt humiliated. I didn't say anything for a while because I wanted to handle it calmly, but it kept happening. I realized he was intentionally trying to damage my reputation and isolate me socially. That's when I decided I needed to confront him, no matter the consequences. I invited him over one evening when our parents weren't around. I tried to be calm, stating that his behavior was hurtful, unfair, and outright toxic. I listed examples of his comments, rumors, and manipulative actions. I told him I wouldn't tolerate it anymore and that our relationship needed to change or I would limit contact. At first, he laughed it off, saying I was overreacting and that he was just joking or telling the truth. I held my ground, and eventually he got angry. He accused me of being jealous, controlling, and unable to handle criticism. The conversation ended with him storming out and blocking me on social media. The confrontation didn't just affect our relationship. It caused a massive rift in the family. Our parents tried to mediate, but it quickly became a mess. Our mom sided with me, saying she understood why I was upset and that Jake had been difficult for years. Our dad, who tends to avoid conflict, tried to stay neutral but kept making comments that implied I was overreacting. Extended family members took sides, and suddenly I was being accused of tearing the family apart. Some even claimed I should have just ignored Jake, that confronting him was provoking the situation, and that I was the one being selfish. Now, 2 months later, I have minimal contact with Jake. He refuses to speak to me and continues to badmouth me to anyone who will listen. Family events are tense, with everyone aware of the divide. I feel like I did the right thing by standing up for myself and protecting my mental health, but the backlash has been exhausting. I've been accused of being dramatic, selfish, and destroying the family for not letting him walk all over me. I understand that family dynamics are complicated, but I genuinely believe someone has to set boundaries, and I was pushed to the limit. I've tried reaching out with apologies if my approach was too harsh, but I refuse to apologize for standing up to years of mistreatment. I just don't know if I handled it in the right way. Family support has been divided, and the tension is unbearable. I'm constantly questioning myself and wondering if I overreacted or if I could have handled it differently without sacrificing my mental health. So, AITA for confronting my brother about his toxic behavior, even though it caused a huge rift in the family and left me ostracized by some relatives. I feel like I was finally standing up for myself, but everyone keeps telling me that family comes first and that I should have ignored him. I just can't bring myself to pretend he hasn't been intentionally harmful for years. I'm exhausted, stressed, and constantly replaying every detail of what happened, trying to figure out if I could have done something differently. Every family event feels like walking into a battlefield, and I hate the idea that my relationship with my brother might be permanently broken over this. AITA for confronting my sister over her parenting choices and creating a huge family rift. I, 32F, come from a close-knit family, and for the most part, things have been great. My parents have always encouraged open communication and honesty, so I grew up thinking that as long as you speak your truth respectfully, you're doing the right thing. That all changed recently with my younger sister, Emily, 28F, and her 3-year-old daughter, Sophie. Emily and I have always had a complicated relationship. We get along well in some ways, but she can be very defensive, and she has always been the type to do things her own way, without much regard for others' opinions. I normally try to pick my battles with her, but this one felt unavoidable. It started a few months ago when Emily decided to enroll Sophie in a Montessori preschool. I have nothing against Montessori methods. My niece thrives in many ways, but I noticed Emily was taking some extreme measures at home to enforce certain philosophies she picked up online. She was strict about not allowing any structured learning outside of the Montessori principles. That meant no alphabet games, no reading aloud from traditional storybooks, and absolutely no TV or digital learning apps, even ones designed for toddlers. I thought this was extreme, but again, it was her parenting choice, so I kept my opinions to myself initially. The real problem began when Emily started dictating Sophie's diet in a way that seemed unhealthy to me. Emily believes in a strict, whole foods, organic only, no sugar, no gluten, no dairy approach. At first, it seemed reasonable, but then I realized Sophie was barely eating anything outside of a few vegetables, fruits, and a very limited selection of grains. Emily had completely cut out things like cheese, yogurt, and even eggs, claiming that Sophie's digestion would improve. I noticed Sophie getting irritable and tired during our family gatherings, and she was extremely picky about food, refusing things she once enjoyed. I suggested gently that perhaps she was being overly restrictive, but Emily shut me down immediately, saying I was trying to poison her child with conventional garbage. I tried to laugh it off, thinking she was exaggerating, but it continued. Then came the disciplinary methods. Emily was reading a lot about gentle parenting and non-punitive approaches, which I generally respect. However, she took it to an extreme where Sophie was allowed to do anything she wanted, regardless of safety or social boundaries. I witnessed Sophie climbing furniture dangerously, refusing to listen during meals, and throwing tantrums for hours because she wasn't getting her way. Emily would stand by, repeating phrases like, "Let her express herself, she's only 3," or "She's a free spirit. We can't stifle her creativity." I started noticing that Sophie was becoming increasingly defiant, aggressive with other kids at the park, and almost impossible to reason with. I mentioned that this might lead to behavioral issues, but Emily told me I was judging her parenting and creating shame around her choices. My breaking point came at a recent family gathering. Emily had invited all of us over for Sophie's birthday. Instead of a traditional birthday cake, she had made a raw vegan dessert that Sophie barely touched. Sophie ended up crying for a cake she could recognize, and Emily refused, insisting, "This is part of teaching her to appreciate health and nature." Then, Sophie tried to play with the other kids, and when they tried to impose any rules in a game, Sophie would scream and hit them. Emily just laughed it off, saying she's expressing herself. At that moment, I snapped. I pulled Emily aside and said exactly what I had been holding back for months. I told her that while I respected her right to parent as she sees fit, Sophie's health and social development were at risk. I mentioned the restrictive diet, the extreme adherence to Montessori philosophy at home, and a lack of boundaries. And discipline. I tried to frame it as concern rather than attack, but Emily saw it differently. She yelled at me, saying I was undermining her authority and trying to brainwash Sophie. The argument escalated quickly, and eventually we both ended up crying and shouting in front of the family. My parents tried to intervene, but Emily refused to speak to me for the rest of the gathering. Since then, things have only gotten worse. Emily has blocked me on social media and stopped responding to texts. Our parents are frustrated because they feel caught in the middle. They see both sides and don't want to take sides, but tension is unbearable. Family events are now awkward and strained, and my relationship with my niece is suffering because I don't want to be a source of conflict for Sophie. Some extended family members have told me I should have minded my own business and that Emily is the parent, so I have no right to comment. Others, including a few friends who are child development specialists, say I did the right thing by speaking up because Sophie's well-being was at stake. I keep going back and forth in my head, wondering if I was truly out of line or if I should have found a different approach to express my concerns without causing a family rift. AITA for confronting my sister over her parenting, even though it led to a major fallout in our family. I genuinely feel torn. I want to protect Sophie and be honest, but I also don't want to lose my sister and damage family relationships permanently. This situation has been causing me constant stress, and I keep replaying our argument in my head, questioning if there was a better way. I've considered writing a long, thoughtful letter to Emily to explain my concerns calmly and respectfully, but I worry it might be interpreted as criticism again. I'm not trying to control her or tell her how to parent, but I do feel that ignoring the situation would be neglectful. I know parenting is deeply personal, but the signs I've seen with Sophie make me genuinely concerned about her health and social development. Some people have suggested involving a professional, like a pediatrician or child psychologist, but I'm hesitant because I don't want to overstep boundaries and make Emily feel attacked. At the same time, I fear that if no one intervenes, Sophie may continue to struggle with nutrition and behavioral issues, which could have long-term consequences. This whole ordeal has left me emotionally drained. I miss the closeness I once had with Emily, and it hurts to see my niece potentially suffering because of rigid parenting choices. I keep wondering if staying silent would have been better for family peace, but I also can't shake the feeling that speaking up was the right thing to do. So, AITA here, was I wrong to confront my sister over Sophie's diet, education, and discipline, even though it resulted in a major family conflict? Could I have handled it differently? Or was it inevitable that a line needed to be drawn for Sophie's sake? AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her boyfriend to my wedding after a huge fight? I, 28F, have been planning my wedding for over a year. My fiancé, Mark 30M, and I have been together for 6 years, and we finally set the date last spring. We wanted a fairly intimate ceremony with close friends and family, about 80 people in total. My younger sister, Emily, 25F, has been part of my life for as long as I can remember, and she has always been close to my family. However, she recently started dating someone new, Greg, 27M, and things between us have been tense ever since. To give some context, Emily and I have always had a competitive streak. Growing up, I was the older, more responsible one, and Emily often resented me for being more academically successful and generally the favorite. Over the years, we've had our ups and downs, but nothing too dramatic. That changed when Greg came into the picture. Emily had been dating him for about 6 months before I met him, and I tried to be welcoming and polite. I made small talk, asked about his interests, and generally tried to include him in family gatherings. Unfortunately, he immediately struck me as rude and dismissive. He often made sarcastic comments about my career. I work as a software developer, and seemed to compete for attention in conversations, always trying to one-up me. My parents adore him, which I don't understand because his behavior is quite abrasive, but I try to keep my personal feelings in check. The real problem started a few weeks ago when we were finalizing the wedding guest list. My fiancé and I had already decided that due to budget and venue restrictions, plus wanting a somewhat intimate ceremony, plus a limit on plus ones, we couldn't invite everyone's friends or new significant others unless they were committed for a long time. I sent Emily a message explaining the situation gently. I told her that because of space and budget constraints, only immediate family and long-term partners would be invited. I asked if she wanted to bring Greg, but made it clear that because they had only been together for 6 months and we hadn't met him at any family events beyond a quick dinner, we might not be able to accommodate him. Emily's response was not what I expected. She blew up over text. She said it was unfair and disrespectful that I would try to exclude Greg when he's important to her. She accused me of being controlling, jealous, and trying to make her feel unwelcome. I tried to explain that the wedding is limited in size and that Mark and I had to make tough decisions, but she didn't budge. The texts continued for hours, with her alternating between pleading, guilt-tripping, and insulting me. She called me selfish and said, "I guess your wedding isn't about family after all. It's just about your ego." At that point, I decided to call her to try and talk it out. During the call, things escalated even more. Greg was in the background, shouting comments that he thought were funny, and Emily defended him. Eventually, I told her I was done with the conversation and that we would need to take a break. She ended the call angry, accusing me of bullying her and trying to ruin her happiness. The day after that, she sent another text demanding a clear answer. I told her simply that Mark and I had made the decision not to invite Greg. I explained that the decision wasn't personal against her, but that we had to consider space, budget, and the fact that we hadn't had a chance to get to know Greg properly. Emily's response was another long rant. She said I was treating her like a child, that I was punishing her for dating someone you don't like, and that if I didn't let him come, she wouldn't attend the wedding at all. At this point, I was torn. I wanted my sister there, but I also didn't want to give in because I felt strongly that inviting Greg would set a precedent that could lead to other people demanding plus ones who weren't appropriate for our limited guest list. I also didn't trust Greg to behave at a family event because of how he had been around me and Mark. Mark advised me to stick to our decision, saying that we could not let someone who disrespected me and made our lives more stressful attend our wedding just to appease family politics. So, I sent Emily a final message. If she wanted to attend the wedding, she could, but Greg would not be invited. I also made it clear that we loved her and wanted her there, but we needed to maintain boundaries. I hoped this would end the argument, but it didn't. Emily called our parents and cried to them about how terrible I was, saying that I was alienating her and ruining her relationship. My parents were upset, but eventually sided with me after hearing Mark and me explain the situation calmly, though they were visibly uncomfortable about the tension it caused. Since then, Emily has gone cold. She hasn't spoken to me except for short, polite texts, and she's refused to RSVP to the wedding. She has posted vague statuses on social media about family drama and people choosing ego over love, which I'm sure are about me. Our other relatives are quietly picking sides, and I've had a few friends warn me that this could cause a scene on the wedding day. I feel like I've done the right thing by sticking to our limits and protecting myself and my fiancé from a difficult situation. I also feel sad that my sister is upset and might not come because I want her there for my big day. But at the same time, I don't think I should cave and let Greg attend just to avoid conflict, especially since he has already shown disrespect. I'm wondering if I'm the asshole here. Should I have just allowed Greg to come to avoid family drama, or was I justified in setting this boundary? AITA? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, who I've always been close to. Growing up, we had a very typical sibling relationship. Sometimes we fought, sometimes we were inseparable, but we shared a lot of big life moments. Emily started dating her now fiancé, Ryan, 27M, about 3 years ago. At first, I liked him well enough. He seemed charming, funny, and caring. But as time went on, I started noticing patterns that made me increasingly uncomfortable. Ryan has a tendency to be controlling and condescending, but he disguises it very well, so outsiders often don't see it. For instance, he frequently interrupts Emily in conversations, corrects her in front of friends, and insists on making decisions for her without consulting her. When we hang out in groups, he often makes subtle jokes at her expense, which she laughs off, but I can see that they bother her. The first major red flag for me was during a vacation last year. Ryan planned the trip entirely without asking Emily what she wanted to do. And when she tried to suggest an alternative activity, he dismissed her ideas and insisted on his plan. She was visibly upset, but didn't argue. Later, when I privately mentioned that I thought she had the right to voice her opinions, she said, "It's fine, I'm used to it," which made my stomach twist. Over the past year, my discomfort has grown. I've tried to address my concerns with Emily gently, emphasizing that I just want her to be happy and feel respected. But she dismisses my concerns, saying I don't understand their relationship, that Ryan loves her and would never hurt her intentionally. I've also tried talking to Ryan a few times when it was just the three of us, hoping to establish some boundaries and see if he would reflect on his behavior. Instead, he brushed me off or laughed awkwardly, sometimes making jokes that made me feel like he was testing me or seeing how much control he could assert. Things escalated recently when Emily asked me to help with wedding planning. I agreed at first, thinking I could at least be involved in her special day. During the first few planning meetings, Ryan dominated the conversation. He dismissed my suggestions, criticized some of Emily's ideas, and repeatedly interrupted both of us. When I finally tried to speak up, he cut me off and said, "You don't get it. Weddings aren't about you. Relax." I felt humiliated in front of the wedding planner, Emily, and the small team helping them. I decided to take a step back and limit my involvement, thinking maybe I could still be a supportive sister without being in the thick of planning. I even tried to focus on smaller, behind-the-scenes tasks that Ryan wouldn't notice, but Emily started asking why I wasn't more involved. I explained that I felt uncomfortable with the way Ryan treated both of us during meetings, but she became defensive and accused me of trying to sabotage her wedding and making things all about myself. A few weeks ago, Emily told me that the wedding date was set and that she expected me to be there in full capacity. I paused before responding, knowing that if I went, I'd have to sit through hours of Ryan's passive-aggressive comments and controlling behavior. I tried one more time to express my concerns honestly, telling her that I didn't feel comfortable attending her wedding if Ryan was going to be part of it, because I couldn't support a person who treated her so poorly. Emily was furious. She said I was being dramatic, selfish, and manipulative, and that my absence would hurt her and our family. She also said that everyone else in the family was excited for the wedding and that by refusing to attend, I was causing unnecessary drama. My parents have been trying to mediate. They say they understand my concerns about Ryan, but they also feel that attending the wedding is more important than my personal discomfort. They argue that I can stay polite, limit interaction with Ryan, and still be present for Emily. I've explained that even minimal exposure to Ryan triggers anxiety and stress for me, and I feel that my presence would be inauthentic and potentially toxic to the day. My parents still insist I should suck it up and prioritize family over my personal feelings. I've also considered the possibility that I'm overreacting or misinterpreting Ryan's behavior, but I've spoken to a few close friends who have witnessed his interactions with Emily, and they agree that he can be controlling and dismissive. One friend even said that they think Ryan enjoys having that level of influence over Emily. The problem now is that my refusal to attend has caused a huge rift in our family. Emily has stopped speaking to me, my parents are frustrated, and other relatives have started to weigh in, taking sides. My fiancé and I have been supporting each other through this, but it's heartbreaking to see my relationship with Emily deteriorate over something I feel strongly about. I know weddings are supposed to be about love and celebration, but I cannot in good conscience participate in an event that involves someone who disrespects my sister and undermines her autonomy. I've suggested alternatives, like a private lunch or small celebration after the wedding, but Emily sees this as insufficient. I'm at a loss. I want to maintain my relationship with Emily, but I also cannot compromise my values and well-being by pretending everything is fine with Ryan. I've tried talking to her calmly. I've tried giving her space. I've considered compromise, but nothing seems to satisfy her. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. Even though it's causing conflict with my family and potentially straining my relationship with Emily for good, I genuinely feel torn between supporting my sister and standing up for her well-being. I've never missed a major family event before, and this decision has left me feeling like I'm failing as a sister, but at the same time, I feel attending would compromise my principles and mental health. Has anyone else faced a situation like this? How can I navigate this delicate balance without completely losing my family or betraying my own values? AITA for telling my sister she couldn't bring her boyfriend to my wedding after everything she put me through. I've been dreading writing this because it involved my family, and I know some people might think I'm overreacting, but I need an outside perspective. My wedding is in 6 months, and I'm currently in full planning mode, which is stressful enough without dealing with family drama. I, 28F, am engaged to my fiancé, 30M, who I'll call Mark. Mark and I have been together for 5 years, and we finally decided to tie the knot. Things were going smoothly until my younger sister, Emily, 24F, started causing tension about her boyfriend. Emily has always been a bit dramatic, but she has a history of being inconsiderate and sometimes manipulative. A few years ago, she borrowed a large sum of money from me for a last-minute trip abroad. I agreed because she seemed desperate, but she didn't pay me back for over a year, and even then, she only did so after I repeatedly asked. That already made me wary of trusting her with anything significant. On top of that, she's never really gotten along with Mark, and I've noticed she tends to say things to undermine him in front of other family members, often jokingly, but in a way that makes him uncomfortable. Recently, Emily started dating a new guy, who I'll call Jason. I don't know him very well, but from what I've seen on social media and a few brief encounters, he seems a bit controlling and dismissive of Emily's friends and family. Emily has been constantly posting about how serious they are and has hinted several times that she wants him to have a prominent role at the wedding. My fiancé and I have been very clear that we want a small, intimate wedding, mostly immediate family and close friends, because we both have large extended families and it would be overwhelming otherwise. 2 weeks ago, Emily texted me out of the blue, saying, "Mark and I were talking, and I think Jason should be part of the wedding party. I feel like it's only fair since he's my boyfriend." I was shocked because she had never brought him up in any previous conversations about the wedding, and our wedding party was already chosen. I tried to respond calmly, saying, "I'm sorry, but the wedding party is already set, and we're keeping it small. Jason won't be included, but you're still welcome to come." She immediately replied with a string of messages accusing me of being controlling and picking favorites. And then she said, "If Jason can't come, I might not come either." At this point, I realized this could turn into a huge problem, so I decided to set some boundaries. I called her the next day to talk it out. I explained that we're keeping the wedding party very limited, and it's nothing personal against Jason. I emphasized that we are excited to have her there, but she can't insist on bringing a new date to be in the wedding party. Emily got very defensive, saying I was being unfair and trying to ruin her happiness. She then brought up past grievances, like the money she borrowed and other family disputes, trying to paint me as unreasonable. I reminded her that the wedding is our choice and that while we love her, we get to make the decisions for our special day. The conversation ended with her hanging up on me. Since then, Emily has been posting passive-aggressive things on social media about people thinking weddings are about them, and some siblings just don't get it. She has also texted other family members, trying to get them to side with her. My parents have been caught in the middle. They support me, but are trying to keep the peace. They've suggested that I consider letting her bring him to avoid drama. My fiancé thinks it would set a bad precedent, and I agree. I feel like this isn't just about Jason. It's about Emily trying to control a situation that isn't hers to control. The most recent incident happened yesterday. Emily texted me a long message saying, "If you truly loved me as your sister, you'd understand that I need to have Jason at the wedding. If you exclude him, you're proving that you care more about Mark than me." I was furious and replied, "Emily, our wedding is not about Jason. It's about Mark and me. You are welcome to attend, but Jason is not part of the wedding party." End of discussion. She hasn't responded directly since then, but she has been posting cryptic comments on social media. I'm worried this will escalate and possibly cause more tension with other family members. I try to be reasonable. I invited her to the wedding. I've included her in planning where appropriate, and I've even been flexible in some areas. But I cannot compromise on this. Our wedding is our day, and having someone in the wedding party just because my sister demands it feels wrong, especially when I don't know him well and there's a pattern of controlling behavior. My parents say I might be too harsh, but my fiancé fully supports me. Some friends have suggested I take the high road and let her bring Jason to avoid conflict, but I can't shake the feeling that doing so would reward bad behavior and undermine the boundaries we've worked to establish. So, Reddit AITA for telling my sister that her boyfriend cannot be in the wedding party and that she must accept this if she wants to attend. I feel like I'm being firm but fair, but I also don't want to be the villain in my own story. I don't know if I should try to negotiate further, ignore her social media digs, or prepare for a potentially awkward wedding. I'm stressed, hurt, and honestly starting to dread what should be one of the happiest times of my life. I want my sister there, but I can't let her manipulate the situation like this, especially at the expense of our wedding plans. This whole experience has made me question whether family obligations should always outweigh personal boundaries, especially on a day that is supposed to celebrate my relationship with my fiancé. I'm bracing myself for backlash, and I just want some clarity on whether I am genuinely in the wrong here, or if I'm justified in holding my ground. I want to handle this gracefully, but I also need to protect my own peace and make sure my wedding reflects the choices Mark and I want to make together. It's hard because I love my sister, but it's becoming increasingly clear that she may care more about controlling events than respecting my wishes. I just don't know how far I should push back before it damages our relationship permanently. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my husband's brother stay at our house indefinitely, even though he's family. This is going to be long, but I need to give all the context. I, 34F, have been married to my husband, Matt, 36M, for 7 years. We have 2 young children, ages 5 and 3. Matt has a younger brother, Kevin, 30M, who has had a rough few years. He lost his job about a year ago, went through a breakup, and ended up moving back in with our parents temporarily. Our parents live across the country, so it wasn't ideal, but they were willing to help. About 6 months ago, Kevin told Matt he needed a break from living with our parents and wanted to stay somewhere closer to the city where Matt and I live. He said he was planning to look for a new job and an apartment while staying with us for a few weeks. Matt told me about it, and I explained that a few weeks is one thing, but our house is small, with 2 kids and a busy schedule. I suggested we could help him find a short-term Airbnb or offer financial support to get back on his feet, but I was hesitant about him living here. Matt said he understood, but promised Kevin that we would let him stay. I trusted him and didn't push the issue further. Kevin moved in about 3 months ago, supposedly for a few weeks. At first, it seemed manageable. He stayed in the guest room, contributed some groceries, and helped occasionally with small things around the house. However, things quickly started to change. Kevin has now been here for 3 months, and he shows no signs of leaving. He has not applied seriously for jobs, and he spends most of his time playing video games or watching TV. He rarely helps with household chores, and when he does, it's minimal. I cook for everyone, clean, and take care of the kids, and now I feel like I have a third adult in the house who is not contributing equally. I tried talking to Matt about it. I explained that our initial agreement was a few weeks, and this is not working for our family. Matt got defensive and said I was being harsh and not family-oriented. He also said Kevin is going through a tough time and that we should support him. I agreed that helping him is important, but I drew the line at indefinite living arrangements that disrupt our household and stress out our children. Kevin also started acting entitled. He uses our car without asking, eats our food constantly, and sometimes brings friends over without telling us. I confronted him about it, and he said he thought it was fine since Matt is okay with it. This made me more frustrated because Matt isn't setting boundaries either. Matt's family has gotten involved. Our parents and Kevin's friends have all said that I should be more welcoming and that family should help each other. Matt has started comparing me to other sisters-in-law who supposedly let their brother-in-laws stay as long as they needed. I feel like I'm being painted as the villain here for wanting my household to have boundaries. I tried compromise. I suggested Kevin find a job and a place to live within a month, and I offered to help with applications and financial planning. I also said he could stay for a few more weeks if he actively looked for work and contributed to the household. Kevin agreed at first, but has done nothing. I've also tried setting house rules about chores, helping with the kids, and asking him to notify us about visitors. He ignores most of it. Matt accused me of trying to force Kevin out and said I was acting selfish. I told him that being married to me and raising our children comes first, and I can't jeopardize our family stability for someone who refuses to take responsibility. Matt still feels I'm being unreasonable and says he owes Kevin this time in our house. I've been feeling stressed, resentful, and anxious. I can barely enjoy time at home, and the kids notice the tension. I love my husband, but I feel like he's prioritizing his brother over his own wife and children. I don't want to force Kevin out in a way. That damages family relationships, but I also cannot continue living like this. I've suggested professional help for Kevin, including counseling and job placement programs, but he refuses. I've also talked to a mediator to see if a compromise could work, like paying for temporary housing while he gets back on his feet, but Matt refuses to consider it because he feels it's disloyal to his brother. I'm torn because I want to help Kevin and maintain family harmony, but I also need to protect my own household and sanity. I feel guilty, but I also feel like I'm being reasonable. I don't want to be seen as the bad person in the family, but living under these conditions is unsustainable. So, AITA for refusing to let my husband's brother stay at our house indefinitely, even though Matt insists it's the right thing to do as family. AITA for refusing to help my sister after she ruined my wedding plans. I, 32F, have always tried to maintain a close relationship with my younger sister, Lily, 28F, despite our very different personalities. Lily has always been impulsive and a little reckless, while I tend to plan everything meticulously. Growing up, this caused some friction, but I always thought our bond would get stronger as we grew older. Last year, I got engaged to my fiancé, Mark, 34M. Mark and I are both very detail-oriented, and our dream was to have a small, elegant wedding with around 70 guests. We spent almost a year planning every little aspect of the wedding, from the flowers and the catering to the seating chart and playlist. Everything was supposed to be perfect, down to the last detail. About 6 months before the wedding, we sent out invitations, and that's when things started going downhill. Lily told me she had recently started dating a new guy, Jake, who she claimed was super important to her future. I wasn't thrilled with this development because she often rushes into relationships without thinking, but I didn't say anything. A month later, Lily called me panicked. She had accidentally double-booked our wedding weekend with a huge family reunion that she and Jake had planned months ago. According to her, she couldn't attend my wedding because this reunion was already set and non-negotiable. I was shocked because our wedding date had been set for almost a year, and I had made it very clear to her that she was a VIP guest. I tried to reason with her, explaining that a family reunion could be moved or shortened, but she refused. The stress of this confrontation was significant, but I tried to move past it. Fast forward to the week before the wedding, I learned from a mutual friend that Lily had actually been planning to have her engagement party with Jake on the same weekend as my wedding, not the family reunion she had mentioned. I felt blindsided and hurt because it wasn't just a scheduling conflict. It was a deliberate choice to put her celebration over mine. On the day of the wedding, things got worse. Lily showed up late, wearing a bright, attention-grabbing outfit that clearly clashed with the color scheme of the wedding party. She came with a few of her friends, including Jake, who was wearing a loud suit. She didn't apologize for being late or for her earlier lies, and throughout the reception, she made a point of drawing attention to herself and Jake. She criticized the food, the music, and even commented on my dress in front of other guests, saying it was pretty, but not really her style. I was mortified, and Mark was extremely frustrated. After the wedding, I confronted Lily about her behavior. I told her that she had ruined months of careful planning and made the day stressful for everyone. Her response was that I was overreacting and that it was my responsibility to adapt because family comes first. She said that she didn't see why my wedding should take priority over her big life events and that I should have understood her situation better. Since then, I've been firm about my boundaries. I haven't invited her to any events Mark and I host, and I've limited contact to brief text messages about necessary family updates. My parents are upset with me, saying I should forgive her because she's my sister and I should let it go for the sake of family. However, every time I think about letting her back into my life, I remember the wedding and how deliberately she tried to overshadow it. Friends are divided. Some say I'm justified because my wedding was a once-in-a-lifetime event, and she clearly acted selfishly. Others argue that I'm being too harsh and that family relationships are more important than one day, even if that day is my wedding. I considered reaching out to her to try to repair our relationship, but every time I imagine that conversation, I worry that she would just repeat the same behavior. I don't know if I'm being unreasonable by refusing to prioritize her feelings and events after what happened. I still love my sister, but the betrayal I felt that day was intense. I want to maintain a healthy family dynamic, but I also feel like she crossed a line that shouldn't be ignored. So, AITA for refusing to help or involve my sister in my life after she intentionally ruined my wedding plans. AITA for confronting my brother over his life choices and causing a family rift. I, 28F, come from a fairly tight-knit family. Growing up, my younger brother, Jake, 25M, and I were close, though our personalities couldn't have been more different. I've always been meticulous, career-oriented, and very socially conscious, whereas Jake has always been a bit more carefree, impulsive, and, let's say, unconventional. Our parents never really pressured him about life choices, partly because they hoped he would find his own path, but I guess I always assumed he'd eventually figure it out in a way that made sense to the rest of us. The issue started about 2 years ago. Jake dropped out of college after his sophomore year, citing stress and not wanting to be trapped in the system. He then bounced between a few odd jobs, bartender, freelance dog walker, a short stint in sales, but nothing long-term. Around this time, he started dating someone I'll call Kara, 24F. From the outside, Kara seemed nice enough, but over time I began noticing some red flags. She seemed very controlling and had a reputation online for influencing people to cut off family ties, push her financial agendas, and she had a long list of past relationships where friends or family described similar patterns. I initially tried to give her the benefit of the doubt because Jake seemed genuinely happy, but my gut told me otherwise. Fast forward to last year. Jake and Kara moved in together. I didn't see them much because of my demanding job, but whenever we talked, Jake seemed stressed but always framed it as normal adult problems. He also started making more impulsive financial decisions, buying a new car he couldn't afford, taking out loans for trips, and splurging on luxury items instead of saving. I tried talking to him subtly at first, suggesting maybe he consider budgeting or thinking long-term. He would nod, smile, and then continue doing what he was doing. Things escalated around Christmas. Our family gathered at our parents' house, and for the first time, Kara attended. She was extremely overbearing, monopolized conversations, and tried to manipulate small family disputes to make herself look reasonable or morally superior. During dinner, she started subtly criticizing my parents' parenting choices, saying things like, "It's amazing they let you work so much and not teach you how to manage money," directed at me. I ignored it, assuming she would tone it down, but it kept happening throughout the evening. After dinner, I pulled Jake aside and voiced my concerns, but not in a casual, "I'm worried" way, more bluntly than I intended. I said something along the lines of, "I'm honestly concerned you're letting Kara control too much of your life. You're making choices that don't seem sustainable, and it looks like she's steering you in ways you wouldn't otherwise go." Jake's face went pale. He said, "You don't get it. Kara is my partner. I trust her, and I'm an adult. You're crossing a line." I tried to explain that my concern was about his well-being and that I wasn't attacking him personally, but it didn't go well. Kara intervened and accused me of being jealous and judgmental. By the end of the night, the tension was unbearable, and I left early. In the weeks following, things deteriorated. Jake stopped speaking to me for a month. Our parents were caught in the middle, trying to mediate, but it seemed like any attempt to discuss the situation only made it worse. Eventually, Jake told my parents that I had tried to manipulate him and undermined his relationship, and that I needed to respect his autonomy. My parents were frustrated because they knew I had a point about some of the financial decisions and the controlling behavior I observed from Kara, but they didn't know how to enforce anything without causing a bigger family divide. Recently, Jake posted on social media that he and Kara are expecting a child. This is where things get really complicated. On one hand, I want to be happy for my brother. On the other hand, I am extremely concerned about the environment the child will be raised in, given Kara's controlling nature and Jake's lack of stability. I've tried gently reaching out, sending messages like, "Congratulations, I hope everything goes well. If you need anything, I'm here." I received a curt, "Thanks, we're fine" from Jake, and Kara blocked me entirely. I've talked to my parents about it, and they're frustrated too. They feel like I might have overstepped with my initial confrontation, and they also feel helpless now. My friends are divided. Some say I was right to be honest with my brother, while others say I was too harsh and should have stayed out of it. I feel like if I don't say something now, the child could grow up in a toxic environment. But if I do, I risk further alienating my brother and making family gatherings unbearable for the foreseeable future. So here I am, stuck. I'm torn between protecting my brother and future niece/nephew from potentially harmful influences and respecting Jake's autonomy as an adult. I also wonder if I could have handled things differently back when I first expressed my concerns, but at the time, I genuinely thought I was helping. AITA for confronting my brother so bluntly and possibly causing a family rift, or would it be worse to stay silent and watch him continue on a path I think could be harmful to him and his future child? AITA for ruining my sister's wedding by refusing to participate in what I thought was an unhealthy family tradition. I need some perspective because things escalated way more than I expected. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, and we've always had a complicated relationship. Our family has a tradition that I've grown increasingly uncomfortable with over the years. Every time someone in our family gets married, during the reception, there's a segment called the Family Challenge, which involves the bride or groom performing certain dares or games, often embarrassing or physically demanding, in front of everyone. This started with my parents' generation, and according to my parents, it's just for fun and all in good spirit. But it has always made me uneasy because some of the dares have been borderline unsafe, humiliating, or coercive, and nobody is ever allowed to opt out without significant family pressure. Emily was getting married to her fiancé, Mark, 26M, and I had been dreading this tradition for months. She initially told me she was planning to skip the family challenge entirely because she didn't want anyone to feel uncomfortable, and I felt relief. A few weeks before the wedding, however, my parents convinced her to keep it. She said she didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings and promised me that participation would be optional for family members. I assumed that meant I could quietly decline if it came to it. Fast forward to the wedding day. The ceremony itself was beautiful, the reception was lively, and everything seemed normal. When it came time for the family challenge, my sister, in a sweet attempt to include everyone, started explaining the games and dares. They included things like singing in front of everyone, doing a mini obstacle course while dressed in formal attire, and for some reason, wearing ridiculous costumes for a staged dance battle. The first few rounds were fine because they involved volunteers or willing participants. Then my sister turned to me, smiling, and said, "And now, it's your turn." I immediately felt my stomach drop. I reminded her that I had declined to participate, thinking she would respect that. She laughed and said, "Come on, it's all in good fun. Don't be such a buzzkill." At that point, my parents and some cousins started cheering me on, using phrases like, "You can't chicken out now," and "It wouldn't be the same without you." I tried to explain that I didn't want to participate for personal reasons, but it quickly became clear that the social pressure was intense. People were filming and recording, and I could feel everyone's eyes on me. I told them I wasn't comfortable and that this tradition is unhealthy and makes people feel coerced. My sister, trying to keep the moment light, said I was overreacting. I refused to take part, stepped off the stage, and left the reception hall for a few minutes to calm down. When I returned, I overheard my parents criticizing me for ruining the mood and being dramatic. Emily came to talk to me later and looked genuinely torn. She said she understood my feelings, but also felt I had embarrassed her in front of guests and ruined a family moment. Some relatives later approached me, saying I should have just gone along with it for Emily's sake and that I was being selfish. I argued that my refusal was my way of respecting my own boundaries, and participating would have made me feel humiliated. They insisted that family traditions are important and that I was overreacting. Emily's husband, Mark, was supportive, telling me he understood my perspective, but he admitted he wished I had handled it differently so the event would have felt smoother. Now, a week after the wedding, my family is divided. My parents keep sending passive-aggressive texts about keeping the family spirit alive. My cousins are teasing me in group chats, and Emily seems distant. I feel torn because I love my sister and wanted her wedding to be joyful, but I also feel strongly that participating would have violated my boundaries and possibly caused lasting emotional discomfort. I'm wondering if I should have compromised in some way, like doing a smaller dare, or if standing my ground was the right choice. I want to be respectful of my sister and family, but I also want to stay true to my own principles and mental well-being. This situation has caused tension that I wasn't expecting, and I honestly feel like I might have handled it the best way I could without betraying myself. But the backlash makes me question if I overreacted. AITA for refusing to participate in the family challenge and leaving my sister's wedding reception upset. AITA for refusing to host my cousin's wedding at my house, even though she claims it's family tradition. This is going to be long, but I need to include all the context. I, 36F, have a cousin, Rachel, 32F, who is very close to me. We grew up like sisters, our families are tight-knit, and we've shared countless holidays and life milestones together. A few months ago, Rachel got engaged to her fiancé, Dan, 33M, and immediately started talking about wedding plans. I was excited for her and offered to help in any way I could, planning, crafting, coordinating, but I never expected that the help would turn into hosting the entire wedding at my home. Rachel grew up in a big family where it's traditional to have weddings at the home of a close relative, especially someone considered responsible or organized. Our grandparents often held weddings, birthdays, and other events at their house, so I understand the tradition she's referencing. However, I live in a relatively small home with my husband and 2 kids, ages 4 and 7. It's cozy, and while it works perfectly for family life, it's not set up to accommodate a wedding of any significant size. When Rachel first asked if she could have the wedding at my house, I hesitated. I explained that our home isn't really large enough to host an event with 80 to 100 people, which is what she's expecting. I also mentioned the logistics, parking, bathrooms, catering, and cleaning afterwards. She waved it off and said it would be fine and that it was important for her to maintain family tradition. I offered to help her find a venue or even a community hall nearby, but she insisted that it has to be my home because it's the family place and the only option that feels right. I tried to set boundaries early on. I told her that I couldn't host the wedding, but I could help with planning, decorations, or even coordinating with a rented venue. She started getting emotional, saying I didn't understand her and that I was being selfish by refusing to let her use the home. She said that our grandparents would be disappointed and that it was my duty as a family member to honor the tradition. Things got worse when she started framing it as if I'm rejecting her entirely. She said that if I didn't host the wedding, I wasn't supporting her big day and that she might reconsider our relationship. She even said she would be hurt for life if I refused. I tried explaining that I'm happy for her. I want her to have the wedding she wants, but that physically hosting an event of that scale is impossible and would be incredibly stressful for my family. The issue escalated when Rachel started talking to other relatives about it. Some of them called me to pressure me into agreeing, saying that it's a family tradition and I should be accommodating. A few even suggested that I owe Rachel this because I'm older and have a stable home. I explained that hosting a wedding isn't just about having a space. It's about safety, comfort in the reality of managing dozens of people in a small house. They dismissed my concerns, saying I was overreacting and that family traditions are more important than logistics. Rachel then brought in Dan, who told me he didn't see the problem and that he expected the wedding to happen at my house. He said that my home is perfect for a family wedding and that I was being difficult. At this point, I felt completely cornered. I reiterated that I cannot host a wedding here due to space, safety, and logistical concerns, and that this isn't personal, it's practical. They said I was letting emotions get in the way and that my refusal was disrespectful. I considered compromise. I offered to host a small pre-wedding dinner at my home, or a post-wedding brunch, or even rent equipment to accommodate a larger group outside if they wanted to have part of the celebration on the property. Rachel and Dan rejected all of these ideas, saying it wasn't the same and that it has to be the house itself for the ceremony and reception. I've also tried explaining that my kids are young and that managing a full wedding here would disrupt their routines and create a stressful environment. I also value my privacy and the integrity of my home. It's where I live every day, not just an event space. They say I'm overthinking and that I'm being too controlling. The tension has spilled into family gatherings. Other relatives are subtly siding with Rachel, saying I should just let her have this, and that I'm making the day harder for her. Some friends have told me I'm justified, pointing out that hosting a large event in a small home is a legitimate reason to refuse. I'm torn because I love Rachel and want her to be happy, but I also feel like being forced to host would create long-term resentment from me and my family. I've tried to stay calm and reasonable, but Rachel frames my refusal as if I'm attacking her dreams. I'm worried that refusing to host will permanently damage our relationship, but I also feel that giving in would lead to chaos, stress, and potential damage to my home. I don't want to be seen as the villain, but I feel like my boundaries are reasonable. So, AITA for refusing to host my cousin's wedding at my house, even though she insists it's family tradition. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of my brother-in-law-to-be. This has been building for a while, and I feel like I need to get it off my chest because everyone I talk to either thinks I'm overreacting or is too polite to tell me the truth. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, who is getting married in about 3 months. Normally, I am extremely close to Emily. We share everything, have similar tastes, and have been each other's support systems for years. However, her fiancé, Mark, 30M, has made me feel uncomfortable since the first time I met him. A little context. Mark is a very charming, charismatic guy, and I completely understand why Emily fell for him. He has a great job, comes from a solid family, and can be very kind when he wants to. But there's a side to him that most people don't see, and I've seen it multiple times. He can be manipulative, condescending, and subtly controlling. He has this way of making people feel like they're wrong for expressing opinions he doesn't agree with. And Emily, unfortunately, seems to have slowly started bending to his will over the past year. I first noticed it when Emily and I were planning her bachelorette party. I offered some ideas for a low-key weekend getaway, thinking it would be fun and intimate. Mark, instead of letting her decide or even hearing me out, immediately shot down everything I suggested and insisted on a lavish, expensive trip that Emily could barely afford. He framed it as just trying to help, but the way he dismissed my input and made Emily feel bad for wanting something smaller was alarming. Emily seemed conflicted, but ultimately agreed to do it his way. That was the first time I really felt uneasy about him. Since then, there have been several incidents that have reinforced my feelings. He often interrupts Emily when she speaks, talks over her in public, and subtly mocks her choices under the guise of joking. The latest and most significant example happened at a family dinner a few weeks ago. Emily and I were discussing career plans. She's a graphic designer trying to land a new job, and I'm in marketing. I was giving her advice about negotiating her salary and boundaries at work. Mark suddenly cut in, saying that I didn't know what I was talking about and that Emily should just listen to someone with real experience. I told him that was uncalled for, but he laughed it off and continued to dominate the conversation. Emily didn't defend me or herself. I could see the disappointment on my parents' faces, but no one said anything. The breaking point came last weekend. Emily invited me over to help with some wedding details. I arrived early to help set up flowers, tables, and decorations. Everything was going smoothly until Mark started micromanaging the setup. He kept telling me I was doing things wrong, questioning my choices, and outright criticizing my taste in front of Emily and the caterers. I tried to stay calm and explain why I chose certain arrangements, but he ignored me and made passive-aggressive comments for about an hour. Emily didn't intervene. She kept saying, "Mark is just stressed," or "he didn't mean it like that," which only made me more frustrated. Eventually, I snapped, told him I wasn't going to be treated that way in my own sister's home, and left. Emily tried calling me later, but I didn't answer. Now, she's asking me to attend the wedding, and everyone in the family is pressuring me to say yes. My parents think I'm overreacting and are worried I'll cause drama. Friends have told me to just grin and bear it for the day, saying that it's only one event. But the thought of being in the same room with Mark, feeling belittled, and seeing Emily defer to him makes me anxious and angry. I honestly don't think I can go without being visibly upset or confronting him in some way, which I know would ruin the wedding. I tried talking to Emily rationally. I told her that I love her and want to support her, but I cannot attend if Mark is there because I don't feel safe or respected around him. I suggested she could ask him to be mindful of my presence, or perhaps we could set boundaries, but she just said, "It's my day, and I shouldn't have to choose between my fiancé and my sister." I told her that I understand that, but I also have to look out for my own mental health and boundaries. She got upset and accused me of being selfish and making her wedding about me. My parents have now told me that not attending would be a huge mistake and family disgrace. I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, I want to be there for Emily, but on the other hand, I cannot tolerate Mark's behavior for an entire day surrounded by our family. Some people have suggested I go, stay out of sight, and avoid confrontation, but I feel like that would be enabling him and compromising my boundaries. I've thought about writing her a heartfelt letter expressing my love and support, but explaining why I can't attend, but I worry she will see that as me trying to control her choices. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé. Even if it means upsetting her and causing tension in my family, I want to do the right thing, but I also don't want to compromise my self-respect or mental health. I feel like I'm already being painted as the villain, and I need an outside perspective. I don't want to start a fight or ruin anyone else's day, but I also feel like staying away is the only way I can protect myself from someone who has repeatedly disrespected me and undermined my voice in my own family. I love my sister and want the best for her, but I also have to consider whether being present is truly supportive or if it's just allowing toxic behavior to continue unchecked. Has anyone been in a similar situation? How did you navigate family pressure while protecting your own boundaries? I feel torn, and I really need honest opinions. AITA for refusing to let my brother live with me indefinitely, even though he claims he has nowhere else to go. This is going to be long, but I want to explain everything so the situation makes sense. I, 33F, have a younger brother, Luke, 28M. We've always been close growing up, but as adults, our lives have diverged significantly. I have a stable career, own a small home, and have a steady routine, while Luke has struggled with jobs, relationships, and living independently for several years. Our parents are still alive, but live in another state, and they have helped Luke financially when he was in trouble, though they cannot provide long-term housing anymore. About 4 months ago, Luke called me, panicked, saying he had been evicted from his apartment and had no place to stay. At the time, I felt bad and wanted to help. I agreed to let him stay at my home temporarily while he looked for a new place. I thought a few weeks would be enough. I explained to Luke that I could only offer a temporary arrangement and that he needed to actively look for a new place and contribute financially if possible. He agreed at the time and moved in. Initially, things seemed manageable. He stayed in the guest room, helped with groceries occasionally, and seemed motivated to find work. I rearranged my schedule a little to accommodate him, but it didn't feel overwhelming because I assumed it was temporary. However, after a month, nothing had changed. Luke hadn't applied for jobs seriously, and when I asked, he said he was figuring things out. He also rarely helped with household chores beyond minimal tasks. I tried having a conversation with him. I reminded him that this arrangement was temporary and that he needed to be actively searching for a new apartment or paying rent. He got defensive, saying I was pressuring him and not understanding how hard things are right now. I tried to explain that I'm happy to support him, but I can't provide indefinite housing without some effort or reciprocity. Luke then started saying that he had nowhere else to go and that I was family, so I should be helping him no matter what. Matt, my boyfriend, who lives with me, is frustrated too. He has been supportive, but he's stressed by the lack of privacy and the added responsibilities. We now have to share the living room, kitchen, and bathroom with someone who doesn't respect schedules or contribute proportionally. Luke has started leaving dishes in the sink for days, using my car without asking, and inviting friends over without notifying us. I've spoken to him multiple times about these issues, but he either ignores them or says I'm making a big deal out of nothing. The situation escalated when Luke started talking to other family members about it. He told my parents and a few cousins that I was being cruel and kicking him out, even though I've been clear that I want to help him temporarily, but cannot support indefinite living. Some relatives have called me, saying I need to be a better sister and support him through tough times. I feel torn because I do want to help, but the pressure is overwhelming and I can't let my household be disrupted indefinitely. I tried compromise. I offered to help him find a temporary sublet or pay part of the deposit for a new apartment. I also said he could stay for 2 more weeks if he actively searched for work and housing. He agreed at first, but has done nothing. He has started saying that I'm trying to kick him out of the family and that he feels betrayed. Luke has also started complaining that I don't care about his mental health. He says living on his own is stressful, and I should be understanding. I try to be empathetic, but I also have a demanding job, and managing someone else's life on top of my own responsibilities is exhausting. My own mental health is suffering, and I'm worried about the long-term effects on my household and personal well-being. I've talked to friends, and some think I'm right to set boundaries and refuse indefinite living arrangements. Others suggest that family sometimes requires sacrifices and that I should give him more time. I feel guilty because he is my brother and because I want to help, but at the same time, I feel that giving will only enable him to avoid responsibility and create resentment in me and in my home. I also worry about future precedent. If I let him stay indefinitely, he may continue to rely on me for other things, and it will strain not only my household but my relationship with Matt and other family members. I feel like I've exhausted all reasonable options for compromise, helping with job applications, offering financial support for deposits, temporary stays, and even structuring a timeline, but he refuses to act. So, I'm asking AITA for refusing to let my brother live with me indefinitely, even though he insists he has nowhere else to go and claims I'm being selfish for not helping more. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he excluded me from the planning and insulted my parenting. I, 36F, have a younger brother, Mark, 32M, who has always been ambitious and outgoing. I've always been more reserved and family-focused. I have a daughter, Lily, who is 8, and I am divorced. My brother has always been close with our parents and tends to have a large social circle, while I'm more selective with whom I spend my time. A few months ago, Mark got engaged to his fiancée, Jenna, 30F, who I had met a handful of times. When he announced it, I congratulated him and offered to help if he needed anything with wedding planning. I assumed that, like most siblings, he might want some input or at least share some details, especially since I have experience organizing events for family gatherings and school functions. What I didn't anticipate was that Mark had already made up his mind that he wanted a child-free, adults-only wedding. He made the decision months before he even mentioned it to me. And when he did, he didn't ask for my input. He just informed me that Lily could not attend. I was shocked because while I understand some couples don't want kids at their weddings, he never gave me any opportunity to discuss it, and it felt exclusionary. I tried to have a conversation with him. I explained that Lily is part of my life and my family, and that I couldn't just leave her behind for what is supposed to be a family celebration. I offered to hire a babysitter or have her stay with my parents, but Mark said that it wasn't the point. He told me he didn't want children there because it would ruin the vibe and that adults shouldn't have to worry about kids at a wedding. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to disrupt anything and that she's very well behaved, but he brushed it off. Then came a more hurtful part. During the conversation, he mentioned that he felt I was too strict with Lily, that I overparent, and that my daughter would probably be a nightmare at the wedding even if she were allowed to come. I was taken aback. First, it's insulting to my parenting. Second, it's not up to him to judge whether Lily belongs at the event. I tried to remain calm, but I was visibly upset. He responded by saying that I was overreacting and that I should get over it if I wanted to attend the wedding. After that, I spoke to my parents, who were disappointed that Mark didn't even consult me before making this decision. They tried to mediate, but Mark insisted on his child-free plan and also implied that my daughter's behavior was a reason he couldn't invite her. I even asked if there was a way to make it work, like having a play area or a sitter for kid during the reception, but he refused. I ultimately decided I couldn't attend a wedding where my child was explicitly unwelcome and where my parenting was openly insulted. I told him I would send a gift and a card, but I would not be attending. Mark reacted very negatively. He called me selfish, said I was choosing my kid over family, and accused me of creating unnecessary drama. Jenna chimed in on social media, implying that I was overreacting and that their wedding was an adult celebration, not a daycare. Several mutual friends have asked me why I won't go, and some have suggested I might be overreacting and missing an important family event. I feel like my boundaries and my role as a parent are being completely dismissed. It's not about controlling the wedding. It's about not attending an event where I feel unwelcome and where my child is treated as an inconvenience. I've offered gifts, I've congratulated him, and I've tried to have a calm discussion. My parents support me partially. They understand why I'm upset, but also feel caught in the middle because they want a big family presence at the wedding. I've been thinking about family holidays and other events in the future. I worry that by drawing this line, I'm setting a precedent where I might be seen as the difficult sibling, but I also feel strongly that I cannot ignore this. So, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because my child was excluded and because he insulted my parenting. I want to maintain a relationship with him and his future wife, but I also feel I need to stand firm for myself and my daughter. I'm struggling with whether I'm being too rigid or if I'm justified in my decision. The tension is ongoing, and I keep wondering if I handled it the right way. Some friends say I could have attended anyway, kept Lily home, and let it go, but it doesn't feel right to accept being publicly judged and excluded. I'd like to hear honest opinions on whether I went too far or if my stance is understandable. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.